Today we're going to be talking with a fellow archer. He shoots traditional archery, and we're going to have some interesting conversation. Hi, my name is Roy Canterbury. I'm going to be host today on Archery Talk 101. And with me today, I have Josh Miller, a traditional archer, and we're going to find out what made him start in archery and what he's doing. So welcome to the show, Josh.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So when it basically a kind of double part question, when and how'd you get started in archery?
Well, I started whenever I was a really young. Actually, let me backtrack. Whenever I was a kid, we always used to go to deer camp at my grandparents. And man, I think I was pretty young. I was probably 8, 9, 10, somewhere around there. Don't really remember, but our way of hunting was they would give you a gun, kind of give you a rundown, and then they would like let my uncle take us out in a truck. He'd stop, be like, okay, get out, walk out 50 yards, sit down, shoot a deer. Like that was it. That was our instruction as a kid. You don't do that to a kid, you know? And so long story short, it was my very first year kind of on my own. And I fell asleep. Like, I was like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, sets me out, fall asleep. I wake up, sun's up, and I got nervous. I got scared. Got up, took off walking, and was the wrong way. But by the grace of God, I ran into my brother on the few ridges over. He'd set him over there, and I ended up falling in a creek, got cold, the whole 9 yards. It was a horrible experience. So I ended up spending the rest of the deer season with my grandma and her camper playing Scrabble, and never touched anything until about, I don't know, maybe 8, 9 years ago. My friend, he's a big avid hunter, and he's like, look, man, you gotta give this a try again. So I went out with them. We shot a doe, off to the races. It was fun. I had a great time, and and then I pretty much became a rifle hunter for a little bit, and then wanted a different challenge and got a compound. Shot it for a couple of years, and then a buddy of mine is a traditional archer, and he's all the time posting these videos and pictures with these big deer, and I'm like, man, I want that. So that's kind of how I got into it, was just through him. I was like, man, I really want that feeling, and wanted the challenge. So yeah, so I've been going about 5.5 years now, and just haven't looked back. It's been all stick and string from then.
Yeah, it's a lot different, shooting a gun, hunting,
Sure.
I've talked to, other archers like, well, when you're rifle hunting, you see the deer, you shoot it, you're done,
You're done.
you know. And I was talking to one guy who's done a lot of them, and he says, asking what's the difference between rifle and archery? Well, the amount of time you get to hunt. I guess it's with a rifle, you go out, you shoot it, you're done. Well, you see the animal, whether it be a deer, a moose, an elk, or whatever. In archery, your hunt's just starting,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
because you got to be within fairly short range. You're not shooting those
Sure.
2, 3, 400 yard shots.
No, no.
You're shooting 20, 30, or even 40 yard shots. And
Sure.
with a bow, that's the time it takes for the arrow to get there.
Sure.
They could take a
And
step
that's
and be a miss.
right. And that's the thing that, I think, as if you're truly a hunter, and I'm not saying anything bad about rifle hunters. I'm a rifle hunter as well. I do have a fairly big family. We eat venison year round, so I have to tag as many as I can, really.
Right.
So rifle season is guaranteed. But let me, like Fred Bear said it best, you give a man a bow and tell him to go hunt, he'll learn more about deer within a week's time than what most rifle hunters will probably learn in a lifetime. And that's so true, because you have to be that much more closer. You have to be that much more precise. You want to give this animal the cleanest death possible. So,
Right.
you're just so in tune with your surroundings, and what Mother Nature has given you to work with, and just learning the game that you're after. I'm telling you, you do it with a bow, you're going to have so much more of an experience versus something with a rifle. Once again, that's just me, but that's what I feel.
Yeah, and I did the same thing. It's like you talk to a rifle hunter, it's like, well, have you shot any deer under 100 yards? So you get a few to say, yeah, yeah. Well, as bow hunters, we're not even getting excited yet. That's not even
No,
within
no.
range.
Yeah.
And I've had them, so close you could see that the hair changed colors as the arrow went through the hair. And the hair is changing colors, so you can see it. It's so close. And we shoot. My first year was at 40 yards, and then since then I've never shot one that far. It's always been 20, 10, 5. They walk underneath your tree stand, and it's like,
Sure.
okay, I can't shoot straight down, because you
Right,
can't bend
yeah,
down
no,
far
it's
enough to
yeah,
get the shot off. So then you got to wait for them to walk away, and you get some experiences that you don't see as a rifle hunter or just somebody that's out in the field.
sure.
How many times have you been sitting there all camoed up, and a bird comes land on the tree branch right next to you? Or a squirrel starts climbing up the tree and you're hoping they don't walk on you.
That's
Or
true,
she had a
yeah.
raccoon. They just
I haven't
climbing
had one
right
of
up the
them yet.
tree. Yeah, I haven't had those. I had bird land, within, foot distance of me.
Oh,
I could
yeah.
have kicked off my foot, and
Yeah, the world's
then
worst. I had two woodpeckers landing on my tree. Like one was literally hammering probably 6 foot above my head, and then the other one was like the next tree over, and they just kept going back. And I'm like, this is yeah, it's fun.
well, and the deer use that noise. They're
Sure.
gonna hear them, so it can cover up some of your motions as well. I know one time I was sitting in a tree stand, and you hear all the rabbits and the birds and everything all just scurrying around, and all of a sudden it's like everything stopped. It was dead quiet. The whole forest went to sleep.
Oh yeah,
and,
chills,
and
right?
that was, it's like, okay, no animals moving, what's going on?
It's
Yeah,
usually around that time that a deer walks out.
yeah. So then you can finally hear them. And I know one morning I was out hunting, and I'm up there and I got my bow hanging on the bow hanger, and I'm watching the sun start to coming up and the frost forming on all the trees and foaming on my bow as well. And that was kind of cool. Some of the scenes that you see doing that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I mean, rifle, I usually get out early too, but with bow hunting, man, I'll be up in my tree, a good 45 minutes before sunrise. And I think it's just so, I can let my body temp come down, change my clothes, give myself plenty of time to work with.
Right.
And, just, it's something about waking up with the woods, with a bow in hand. It's one of the best experiences. I mean, just seeing the animals come out and waking up and stretching, and it's pretty cool that you just get to witness that. And I mean,
Yeah.
there's just something about hunting.
Uh, Even if you go out and don't get a chance to even draw your bow back, some of those days are just, you remember more than you do, when you actually got something.
You bet. Some of my
It's
best memories are exactly that. You'll see deer, but it's like being the decider of that deer whenever they're in within 15, 20 yards. And you're like, it's just, you let one walk. I mean, that's just a gift that you have, to be able to do that. I guess it's a weird feeling, but it's really a good memory, seeing a doe walk through with a fawn, and, just seeing the circle of life. It's really, really cool, man.
Yeah, I had one time this doe come walking with his fawn, and it's like, a doe with a fawn, I'm gonna let him walk. And
Mhm.
you know, she left her fawn 20 yards from my tree stand and walked away. The fawn laid down and sat
Yeah,
right there, right in front of my tree stand. I could have shot it anytime I wanted, but it was cool just watching it, because
you bet.
something else comes in, that's my alert.
You bet.
Because that
That's
fawn's gonna get up, something comes in, and so the doe come back, and then they left together, and I just let them walk, as watching them. And you get a lot of stuff like that you're going to see, and it's just amazing,
that.
some of the things that you see. And some will say that where you park your truck, don't you can't be anywhere near, you got to walk in for miles, because the deer are afraid of the truck. Yeah, I'm here to tell you, no, they ain't. I had one place I was hunting on one side of the tracks, there's a little pond on the other side, so we pull up, park the truck next to the pond. I'm in my tree stand, I can see my truck, and I watch a deer walk behind my truck within about 5 feet of back of my truck.
Sure.
They didn't care.
Mm,
It's on a farm field. They didn't care if the
mm,
vehicle was there. They weren't afraid
yeah.
of it. They just walked right on by.
Yeah, same
It's
thing with my Polaris. I park, anywhere from like 80 to 200 yards away, depending on where I'm hunting. And I could literally see my Polaris. And this is 2 years ago. Literally watch deer walk past my Polaris and start making their way right to me. It's, if they're used to it, they absolutely don't care.
Right. And unless you're in a place where there's like no people ever at.
Sure.
Um,
Pressure has a
that,
lot to do with it.
yeah. I know there's one place that it's a public, our David Parks has a property, you can archery hunt there. And archery or shotguns, all you can use, no slings or rifles, muzzle or everything. So there's a lot of archery, and, they're used to people there all the time. There's people constantly walking around, so, human sense not quite as important as some place where there's like no human contact. And I remember one time I was using the old British chem suits, before I was able to get, the scent blocker or scent lock suits, and didn't really know how well they'd work. Well, it was turkey hunting out, and it was early season, so it was hot. And morning was not bad, but afternoon hunt for deer hunting, yeah, it was kind of hot. So, I didn't have all my hunting clothes underneath the chem suit. I just had it on, and I'm sweating, all afternoon long. And I figured, yeah, okay, I'm gonna smell something. When I pulled that chem suit off, it just smelled like distilled water. There was no smell in it. It's like, that's when I knew that they really worked.
Yeah, that's actually pretty nice.
Yeah, it's
I'm
like,
gonna have to look into it because I've been talking with a few different hunters that have been, really doing not scientific studies, but a lot of different studies with wind squirrels and pretty much how to hunt different points with just pretty much wind direction and squirrels and all of the thermals and all that good stuff. Cody Greenwood from Trad Lab, he's shared a lot of information with me this year that is really interesting on deer behavior with that stuff. And it's you would have to have talk with him about it, but the guy is really smart whenever it comes to stuff like that. But as far as his gear stuff like that, he's not really having a huge success with different style of I guess scent covers or however you want to say it. But I think more or less he's pretty much studying squirrels this year, and it's pretty interesting.
yeah, it's kind of weird. A squirrel, if you're all in camoed up, a squirrel can't figure out what you are.
Oh yeah. I meant
I
squirrels, like wind squirrel.
Swirls, yeah, swirls. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. I thought you were saying squirrels, like squirrel. Okay,
Yeah, no,
Man,
squirrel. And that's squirrels. Squirrels.
well, it's kind of interesting story. That it was season's open, and I had my hunting tag as well as my archery tag, and this squirrel comes up and standing on this branch, down below me, and I was like, okay, is it season out? So I reach down, pull out my wallet, open it up, pull out the card. Squirrel's watching me the whole time. And I look at it, it's like, oh, season's open, put it back away, draw back on the squirrel and shoot. It's just standing there looking at me the whole time. they can't figure out what you are. Some animals just can't figure out what you are. And one time I was walking through a field, and here's a squirrel up on top of a fence post. And I'm waving my hands and everything else. He just sit there and looked at me. I'm not shooting it because there's a big old tall grass field behind it. I'm not wasting an arrow on a squirrel.
Sure.
None of
Sure,
those.
no.
But
Yeah,
there's
that's like with me. Yeah, wooden arrows, like that's what I shoot. And I don't know, man, wooden arrows are getting harder to make. So like, I'm trying not to waste any.
yeah, they used to be, real popular, when I started, but in the 60s, they didn't really have much except wood.
Sure.
And then when the 70s, when compounds come out, of course, you can't shoot wood with a compound. I've had people say, oh yeah, you can. Yeah, you might shoot it with these new ones. Yeah, you're going to shoot it once, and you're going to have wood fragments all over your body, inside your body. They just won't take the pressure.
And that's a very interesting conversation, especially now. I have this with so many people about wooden arrows. The traditional archery game has become so big over the last, 10 years or so. And now wooden arrows are kind of coming back on a rise, and they're just getting bought up, so the wooden arrows that were still kind of hanging around, the Acme, Rosewood, all them, that were fairly decent back in the, 70s, 80s, they're gone, and it seems like now, and I'm not knocking, people that still make them because they don't really have a choice, but you're not finding these old growth rings like you used to. Everything's
Right.
being cut kind of green now. So you have to buy in bulk, store them in a humidity controlled room for 2-3 years minimum, and then clean sap off of them, respine them, re-weight, check them. I mean, it's building a set of wooden arrows now is nothing like it was in the 60s, 70s, and possibly even the 80s. Now, to build a set of wooden arrows, you're still spending a lot. You're spending way more for one. Arrow, like even feather prices have jumped up like 20% in the last year. It's just
Right.
mostly because of COVID, but just building, you can buy carbon, a set of 12 carbon arrows for exactly the same price, if not cheaper than what it takes to make wooden arrows. For me anyways.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And on my carbons, I shoot the competition grade ones, the 001 straightness carbons.
Good.
That's what I hunt with.
Sure.
I figure, if I'm going to send an arrow, I want it to be the most accurate as I can. And I always set my arrows up so that I can hit the X ring with the broadhead,
You bet. You bet.
because if I have the arrow is off, and now then you're judging your yardage is off a little bit, now you're really off.
Sure.
And that's the thing that I've noticed too, that there's different straightnesses have different size groups.
You're absolutely right. And here's the thing,
Yeah.
you're only as good as your equipment. I know that people
Right.
say a lot of times it's the Indian. Well, that's true, but you take that same Indian, give him bad equipment, give him good equipment, let me tell you what, his confidence is going to be way higher with something that's, more
Right.
accurate.
Yeah.
Even if it's a mental thing, he's going to perform way better with something versus a 001 straightness versus a 003. It's just, you can't fight that. So you really want to have the best equipment, and you want to be able to have the confidence in your equipment. That's absolutely true.
Right. And I've noticed too, you can put 0-1s inside the X ring every shot. Not a problem. Then when you start going in the 3s and the 6s, and therefore up, you see come out with a 7, the hunter shaft, which is the 7,000s. And that you're lucky you can keep them in the 5 ring, but not in the X ring. They just won't group that tight. And
Well, there's a lot of, I don't just test my wooden arrows. I actually, last time I bought some, not illumins, but I'm not going to say who, but I bought some arrows, a relatively known arrow maker, carbons, and just out of curiosity, put them on an analyzer, spine tester, the whole nine. I bought 3 dozen, and I had to cull 7 arrows. I had to trash 7 arrows from a .001 batch. So even your carbons are getting to where there's a difference. So if you're getting really competitive or you're wanting to just get the best that you can, it doesn't matter what equipment you have, test it. I'm a firm believer in testing everything. So, and with that, that just gives me more of an edge. I'm able to put, even if it's, an eighth of an inch closer to my group. Granted, I mean, I can't do that every time, but let's just say if you take the human error out of it and you're able to get that, why wouldn't you want it? So yeah,
Right.
always, I mean, I'm still checking the spine on my arrows, flexing them the whole 9 yards, shooting them for a week and then testing again. And you'll be surprised by what you can see.
Right. Yeah. It's I know when I was doing aluminum arrows, I went through and I got all my arrows, I got them all cut. I put the nocks in, they were the uninox. I put all those in, and then I weighed the shaft, and then I got the weights for all the shafts, and then I weighed all the points, and then I kind of mashed them together so I'd have all the same weight, and then I would take and file some of the inserts down.
Yeah.
So I got a whole dozen arrows, total weight, within like a half a grain of each.
Oh,
No matter, no
that's awesome.
within a half a grain. So
True.
that was a lot of work. It's like I did it once. It's not generally worth it, especially with aluminum, because as you shoot aluminum, it starts
Yeah.
weakening. And
Sure.
I used to get a new set of arrows every year before hunting season. And those are my hunting arrows. And then I'd shoot them throughout the year. Next year, I'd buy another dozen because I wanted
Sure.
the straightest shafts I could. And it's amazing how, you're starting off, you're hitting around the X ring, then in a 5 and growing out. Now you're throwing some out outside the 5 ring, down in the 4, and then get new arrows, it tightens it back up again.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah. Question your mentality and ability as an archer.
right. And when you think about it, how would you break a piece of aluminum? You'd bend it, keep bending it,
Sure.
and eventually weaken and break. Well, when you shoot
Sure.
an arrow, if you ever seen arrows on a slow motion camera, oh, they're flex a lot. They're
Archer's
just look like a
paradox. Yeah.
snake. And
Yeah.
they're bending up and down and up and down and they're not flexing. And that's why the tolerances might start out as I would get the ones that are 0.0015, best I can get with aluminum. And
Sure.
you shoot them, and next thing you know, you've got a 2, a 3, so that they're getting less straight throughout time. And of course, you're weakening the spine a bit too. But I used to shoot way over spined arrows, and they shot real good out of the bow I had. You set them up. Back then there was a big thing was shooting through paper. It's like,
Oh yeah,
it,
still big. Still big.
yeah, it's still kind of big doing that. But if you don't know what you're looking for, it's not going to help you.
Sure.
And whenever I set up a bow, let's set up compound bows, traditional bows, your long bows, recurves are a little bit different for setting up because you don't have quite as much adjustment. But I'd set them up because I have the rest set in there and a knock point and the center shot, all that. I use lasers and levels to get them all set up so it's perfect. And then you shoot, you got a perfect hole. Somebody else takes up the bow and shoots it, you don't have a perfect hole.
Sure.
It's like, how come I can't get a good hole? How come it's got a terrible, bad tear? They're like, well, it could be you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
because
yeah,
a
and that's the
bad
thing,
form is going to do that.
Sure, and there's so much more than just form. His form may have been perfect. You never know. I mean, but the slightest a different amount of pressure on whether you're, pushing right through the medius part of the palm, or you're bringing it down a little bit, or you have more of a throat. Somebody who throats the bow versus somebody that heels the bow is going to yield 2 totally different results.
Right.
So so if you're throating the bow and you're having a great accuracy, it's like bullet holes. And then you take somebody else like a true competitive, like just amazing formed archer, but he's healing the bow, versus some like the newer Hoyts or Matthews with the straight push down, and then he's pushing into it. He's literally changing the timing of them
Right.
cam or tiller in traditional archery. So yeah, that's gonna totally yield a whole different arrow flight, the whole archer's paradox, spine, everything's gonna be affected. Sure.
Yeah, it's amazing, how much is there. And when I first started, it was record on VCR tapes. When I first learned back tension release back in the mid 90s, you
Sure.
didn't have cell phones that could take outstanding videos.
Sure.
My video when I'm videoing here, like on podcasts or something like that, I have a Logitech 920 camera that I use, which gives me real good quality, but it still don't beat what's on the phone.
Sure. Yeah.
My phone has amazing stuff on. You can do panoramic stuff on it. You can do zoom stuff, slow motion. I don't use all that stuff. I just take a raw video because a lot of them I'm going to go ahead and edit anyway. But it's
Sure.
amazing how much you can see from watching that video.
Oh, yeah.
When I first started teaching, you go in and you have to watch them shoot. And when I first started with the guy had that taught class, they had a laser put on your bow. And then the laser would point towards one target, and then you'd be shooting basically a different one, and you could watch what the laser is doing. And amazing how much it just bounces around all over. And once you learn the technique, you can see it still moves around. It's still going to move around, but you're not focusing on the pin. And target panic in traditional archery is a little bit different than target panic in compounds.
Sure.
Especially those that are using either a trigger finger one, wrist strap one, or handheld one. All those target panics, especially with the finger activated one, is you see a lot of people, the fingers pointing up, and then they get ready to shoot, and then just cram on the trigger.
Sure.
And it's like, I didn't understand when I first started, how you can shoot your back, not know when it goes off. Then once you learn, it's like, oh, now I know why. And you
Sure.
see, I've even watched some of the hunting shows and some of these guys that know what they're doing. For one, they're drawing way too much weight because they can't draw it and they're drawing it wrong, bringing an arm up and trying to pull it down as they're going in. And then they get their finger and they're yanking on the trigger. And, it's like, dude, well, let me help you in your draw technique. You're going to be able to draw more weight easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've done it many times. I've been an archer coach since 1995, and I've taught a lot of people how to shoot, mostly in
Sure.
compounds. I don't,
Sure.
I do teach a little bit of recurve, but not much. Just because I don't shoot it that much. And
Good.
some of you guys have some good coaches already, and I run in somebody has a good coach struggling with something. I don't try and teach them their technique. What I do is like, okay, what is your coach telling you to do? And by the time I ask all these questions of how you've been taught to do it, you've answered the
Sure.
question most time.
Yeah.
Just going through asking all these questions, like, well, he's gonna do this, like, but you're not doing that. And that's
Right.
nice about a video. And I know when I was first looking at doing an online archery coaching program, I had a guy I was talking to on Messenger, and he says, there's no coaching around me. And I says, well, I'm thinking about putting together an online coaching program. Let me see how it works. So I'll coach you for free, just to see if it's going to work. And so he'd send me videos and I'd give him critiques and go back and forth, and he struggled and he was getting better and better. And then come find it, he lives in Italy.
Oh,
My
wow.
first
Yeah.
online student was in Italy, and I'm
That's
here in
pretty cool.
Nebraska.
Yeah. We live in an age now where technology is such a pro, it's really changed the game and the way that we train, practice, the whole nine yards. Um, I don't have a coach. Everything that I've learned has been self-taught through videos, reading, and just asking questions online. I mean, it's the way that we get information now is it's just so great. I think I was able to reach a above average state rather quickly because of it. I was so consumed by this that I was able to read online forums. I was able to ask through Facebook groups. I was able to record myself and then go back and look at videos and pictures through coaching and stuff like that through like actual coaching videos. So I can't say that I didn't have a coach. The internet was my coach.
Right.
But here's the thing that I will say now, because the internet is so big, you have to be careful where you get your information.
Right.
I
Right.
always tell people, here's the thing. If you ask a question on a website or something, or a forum or Facebook page and say, look, here's my form. What am I doing wrong? Critique it. If you got a guy, and I'm just saying this because it happens all the time. If you got a guy that's like, well, you're not getting into back tension, or you're not doing this right, and his profile picture is him flipping off the camera, it's probably not a reliable source.
Right.
If you know what I'm saying? Like, but if you get somebody that is, wearing a Team USA jersey, or, standing with a big buck, or so you got to find yourself somebody that has proven themselves in the game. So
Right.
I don't just take information from your average Joe. Even if he's got a picture with a big buck, that's great. Whenever I first started, I had big bucks. I wasn't very good at that time,
Right.
but so the main thing is research the people who you're getting your information from, and make sure it's a valuable source that has proven themselves in the game. That is
Right.
the best advice I can give somebody that's getting new into the archery realm.
Yeah. And that's where you need to go to somebody that is used to teaching. I know there's one guy that I helped when I was still trying to get all the bugs worked out on teaching online. I got on a Zoom call with him, similar to what we're doing here, but with the audio, we had the Zoom call, and
Sure.
that's how I do most of mine. And he was grouping at 20 yards, probably 6-inch group. So I got on with it, and he was one of those that posted, hey, how's my form look? And of course, so you get the hand positions wrong and a couple other things. And
Sure.
so I invite him into the Archery Talk 101 Facebook group, because there I can deal more personally with them instead of
Sure.
just generic stuff and have people say, oh no, just say, how's my form? You need to practice more. That's a non-answer to an answer.
Yeah.
So I got him in
Yeah.
there and I got him on a Zoom call. We spent about an hour together. And then it was, a few weeks later, he sent me a picture of 3 arrows touching.
That's awesome.
So he went from 6 inches to 1 inch just with an hour
Sure.
of time I spent with him.
Yeah,
And,
sure.
and I've
And
done
that's the
that many,
thing.
many times.
You bet. That's the thing. It's not so much how much you shoot, because they say, oh, repetitiveness makes perfect. And that's true if you are practicing the right way.
Right.
You have to practice smart, not practice in volume. And that was my problem, that I've just come to realization with over the last few months. I was putting in 1-2 hours a day minimum, and that's no joke. 1 to 2 hours minimum. But it just got to where I was flinging. I wasn't sending them with a purpose. I wasn't going through a shot process. I wasn't, starting from the ground and working my way up on every individual arrow. And then the frustration sets in. And then you're like, well, I can outshoot this. I can get this. The next arrow will be better. The next arrow will be better. And you just get into that repetitive form. And what you're doing is you're building a bad shot process. You're allowing this frustration and then target panic and anger. All this is starting to incorporate through your shot process, and it's not healthy. It's not good. So practicing smart versus practicing in volume. Somebody who practices 15 minutes smart will yield better results versus somebody that was shooting like me 2 hours a day with no intention, no purpose, just trying to get repetitive.
Right. Well, when you think about it, you go out hunting, how many shots do you get?
Who knows?
1.
If you're lucky, you get a few more, but generally
Right.
there's one.
Your first shot counts. So you go out and your very first shot. That's why you want to warm up. No,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a hunter. I don't need to warm up. My first shot has got to be the best one I can shoot. And you go back and you focus on it. I get 1 shot, just like shooting a muzzleloader. You got 1 shot. You're not reloading very quick. Even a fast reload's not very quick. You get 1 shot, make the one count.
You bet.
Kind of like I had, I used to work at Bass Pro for a while, as well as Cabela's. You kind of go through that area after I closed my shop. And there's one guy come in with the barrel blown out on his shotgun. It's semi-auto. Well, he was shooting slugs. And with semi-auto, you shoot one, it warms the barrel up, leaves a little residue of the plastic around the slug. And you shoot again, it's already hot, melts more. By the time you shoot the third one, you have enough built up in the barrel that it blew the end of the barrel out. And the worst thing is, it's the second one he's done it to. You get out there, 3 shots real quick. It's like you can't shoot a shotgun that quick.
No,
not a semi-auto at a deer. It's just like, make your first shot count. And,
you betcha.
I'm not saying that you have to go to single shot. It's nice having those backup shots if you need them. Just like you don't go out with 1 arrow, you go out with a quiver full of arrows. And there are times sometimes that quiver is not enough. Especially when you're in an area where you have multiple tags. You have a season tag. Here in Nebraska, we have season choice tags, which allow you to shoot in any season. And there for a while there was 2 for 1, so you got two deer on one tag. So if you have 2 of those, you could buy as many of those until they run out. So if you have 2 tags, that's 4 deer. And I was in one place, I only had like 2 or 3 arrows with me, and one come by, a nice shot. It's like, and I'm out of arrows, and the deer keep walking by. I got more tags, no arrows. So, one of those that you just have to try and figure out, okay, make that first shot a little better.
You bet.
and we've all messed them up. There was one time I was in a tree stand and I hear this deer coming from behind me. So I turn around, and then I'm at full draw, waiting for it to step out. And then I hear a deer behind me again, the other way, coming my direction. So now I know there's another one coming the other direction. I got this one here. So I shoot, get that one. I watch where it runs off. I turn around, load my arrow, draw back, and shoot the next one. It's coming from completely different directions. The only problem with that is now I got 2 to track down, 2 to clip field dress, and 2 to haul out.
I've actually done that this year. So good problem to have though. But where I'm from, we here in Missouri during archery season, you can tag as many does as you want as long as you got the tag. So I mean, you could buy 7 tags while you're in your tree. You could fill 7 tags while you're there.
Right,
I mean, now granted that doesn't happen, but I mean, you just never know.
right. Yeah, I know that the one area that we got was hunting. Last year we hunted a little bit towards the end of rifle season. We just got permission on it. And we put up trail cameras, trying to figure out when they're coming through. And in probably about a month, I've caught one deer come through during daylight. Everything else coming through at night or very first thing in the morning while it's still dark. I'm like,
Yeah.
you got to be there early in the morning is the only time you're going to have a chance at seeing any, because they come through right just before legal shooting time. They're coming through, and that's the nice thing about trail cameras. I
Yeah.
didn't have to sit out there for hours and hours all day long afternoon and finally see one. And yeah, it was kind of weird. And the whole time I was monitoring them, I seen one deer come through during the daylight hours. Everything else would come at night. It's one of those where you've got the cornfield and the alfalfa field, and then there's just a little bitty row of trees around it, and that's it. So it's kind of a pass-through area.
Nice little
So
funnel. Yeah, they got some beds close by. Yeah.
or I think about putting a feeder up in the summertime that goes off during the day to get them there trained to come through
Yeah.
during the day. Then of course hunting season we can't have the feeder out, but
Sure. Yeah. We can't either.
I think you have to 30 days before season starts when you have to pull it.
Yeah, that's how it is in Missouri too, and they don't take that lightly.
No. You're
Not
on
speaking
private
from
property.
experience, but I mean, our game wardens we have very good game wardens, and actually, I really do like that because it keeps the game fun, because we do have a lot of poaching here in Missouri. It's really ridiculous, but it keeps the game fun.
Right. I know at Two Rivers State Park, one place I used to hunt quite a bit, there was a full-size deer in there that had bullet holes in it. They'd use it as a decoy. They'd stick it out someplace where they can't shoot. People drive by, stop and shoot it, and they'd go give them a ticket. It's like, it's not moving. It's completely still, and they're shooting it anyway.
Yeah, well, they're dumb to be shooting in the first place, so it doesn't surprise
Right.
me they're shooting a still animal.
Yeah. It's interesting how they do that. And when I was a kid, road hunting wasn't, really frowned on. In Iowa, you could road hunt in Iowa. Nebraska, you couldn't. And
Wow.
now it's it's kind of different the way they have the different laws, and now it's like they'll sit out there and they'll put decoys out and watch you, and and I never did really like road hunting anyway. You're like, yeah, give me a field to walk.
Yeah, you want to, you. The, I will never road hunt. I don't personally say that I like people that road hunt. But the thing is I've come to respect the game, and you want to give that game a fair chance.
Right.
Like, that's just the way the mentality I have. And as you get older, you developed a respect for this type of game. So
Right.
it's like, why would you want to not give it a fighting chance kind of thing. That's just my mentality with it.
Yeah.
And it gives you that much more satisfaction as well.
Well, and it is kind of on the right of way of the roads, and you can't hunt from the road. So,
Sure.
Why would you want to do that? And I know I was out with a group of guys one time, I think my brother and a friend, and they were out, looking for him. And I seen this pheasant sitting alongside the road. I didn't say anything. I was like, no, just go to a field somewhere. Let's go walk. So what are you doing now in archery? I know you're real big into the traditional archery. Do you normally
Right.
shoot recurves, longbows, or what are you doing now?
I shoot specific to longbows. I mean, I might shoot a bare bow recurve every once in a while just to kind of change things up. But 99.9% of the time, I'm shooting longbows. I shoot everything from reflex, deflex longbows, D-style longbows, hill style bows, English longbows, like I'll shoot any type of longbow. I did just recently come back from Italy. I made Team USA in the 2022 season. We got to shoot in Italy, tourney Italy, and myself and my other two teammates in the longbow division, Shiloh Butts and Kenneth Jordan, we all did great. Kenneth and Shiloh both did fantastic, placed in the top 10 in the world. I was in the 16th position. I actually didn't shoot so hot day two, but Shiloh was able to bring home the bronze for us in the States. So that was pretty cool. I'd like to, that was my first time ever making the team. I was kind of I'm not saying a nobody, but it was kind of like I was a very big underdog because I've only been in the game at that time for 5 years, you know. These guys have been shooting for 20, 30, 40 years. And, you know, it was just cool to be able to stand among the giants in the nations and you know, just learn and shoot my game. So that's kind of what I'm doing now. I've kind of came back to the drawing board. After that, it was a great experience. I've learned a lot and, you know, changed some things in my tune-up, my setup, my tuning process, my setup. And I'd like to try out for Team USA again in 2024. Not sure where it's going to be at in the world this upcoming time, but I would like to give it one last go. And just try to not so much redeem myself, but I feel like I was destined for more. I had a lot more to prove, not to anybody, but to myself. So I would like to give it one last hurrah and really leave every bit of myself out there on the line because I don't feel I actually did with this one. I left a little bit on the table and, you know, 1-2 points, you know, 1 inch, half an inch can be, you know, what sends you home. In my case,
Right.
that's what it was. It was less than half an inch that sent me home. And, you know, it's something I think I shoot because it's something you're never going to perfect. You're always going to chase that next level. And traditional archery really does that for me. So I'm truly a competitor in anything I do, but traditional just, it tugs on my heartstrings and longbow is always going to be a part of my life from here on out.
Yeah, those are some good goals. And, you know, even though you're on a team, you're still competing against yourself.
Sure. You bet. And it was good, you know, even though, and here's the thing, part of being a team as well, you know, it is every man for himself to an extent. But let me tell you what, I wasn't rooting bad for my teammates. Even after I lost and I was out, I think I was the loudest one on the bench screaming for my teammates, you know, like Team
Right.
USA has such a great camaraderie. There's not a bad soul on that team. Everybody's so happy-go-lucky. Everybody's cheering for everybody, even if they're shooting against each other. Dwayne Martin and John Dimmer years ago, you know, they're looking across at each other like good shot, and they're giving each other thumbs up, you know, just shooting for the same gold medal. So, you know, that's what's that's one of the best things that I loved about being on Team USA. You know, even as I was shooting, there's people behind me, my whole teammates just cheering me on. And, you know, ultimately they're people I'm competing against too. So yeah, it is every man for himself, but Team USA has such an outstanding team, great camaraderie, and just, you know, all around excellent support for one another.
Yeah. And nice thing about, you know, archery, you and I are archers, it automatically makes us friends. We may
Yeah,
not know each
automatically.
other, but, you know, we have
Sure.
something in common. We have a passion in common that we're all looking at archery, no matter whether you're shooting longbows, I'm shooting compounds, you know,
Right.
different stuff like that. And I've got a friend of mine that was on Team USA for the compound. So he went over and competed over there too. Um, you know, so, you know, there's a lot of people out there that, you know, that's their goal. And here
Sure.
a few weeks back, I talked with a young lady that we'll see her in the Olympics. You know, she's just going there. She's got the attitude and everything else. And, you know,
Yeah.
you just got to go. And, it's a sport that you don't have to be, you know, well, you got to be somewhat physically fit, but you don't have to be, you know,
Sure.
this great super athlete to shoot a bow.
Sure.
In fact, the fun part I see is, you know, we get somebody that just shoots a lot. You know, we've got some pretty good strength for drawing a bow back. And it's always fun when you see a football player trying to struggle, pull back a bow. We just pull back easily. and they can't pull it back. They're struggling because they never use those muscles. We develop muscles that they don't have, and they
Sure.
develop pretty quick.
Muscle technique. Yeah, there's so much more into archery. Just like, if we tried going to their world and tried to learn to tackle, I'm sure we'd learn pretty quick.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's totally different game.
yeah, it is, and it's just it's something that you don't have to quit doing.
No, no.
There's I've got guys that are in the archery group that have been shooting for uh, 70 years.
Yeah.
And,
If you
and
got a
then
good technique, you take care of yourself, you know how to draw the bow, and you're not overbowing yourself, you can do this for the rest of your life. I mean, you really can. My problem was whenever I first started coming from a compound, I was shooting a 60-pound compound, and automatically I'm telling myself, okay, you need to shoot pretty close to that for a recurve or something like that.
nope.
Yeah, so right. So so I got like a 55-pound Samick Sage that is like 55 at 28, but I'm sitting here drawing, 30 long inches. And as I'm doing that, that bow feels like it's 100 pounds. And I shot that for shoot 7, 8, 9 months and just destroyed my shoulder within such a short time.
Oh
I
yeah,
now, yeah, I know. I mean, but here's the thing. I didn't know what I was doing. People can shoot that poundage. That's perfectly fine. But another thing that I've learned is all of my bows that I shoot, they're 40 to 44 pounds. My hunting bow is 44 pounds. That's behind me, but it's 44 pounds and it has blown through hogs, goats, deer. I mean, just anything that my state has to offer, it will blow through. And it's all pretty much what it comes down to is the tune, the arrow tune. You know,
right.
you don't have to be overbowed, but you take a nice, you know, I don't want to say light bow, but you take a bow that's 40 pounds and you take a bow that's 60 pounds and you draw it. I mean, yeah, once you get that back tension, you get everything locked, you can hold it for a while. But now imagine if you're, maybe just slightly out of alignment, or you got a big buck coming in and you're really, kind of shaking. Everybody shakes. I mean, I shake like a
Sure.
cat. Right? I mean, bad, on catnip. I shake. So let's just say you have a small micro collapse. That 60-pound bow is going to show up in your collapse way more than a 40-pound
Oh
because
yeah,
obviously you're able to hold that 40-pound a little bit more steady. And there's been times where I've drawn that 40-pound bow and a deer, may hear a little nick of, the arrow on the shelf or something. They stop right in their tracks because I draw when they're going behind trees or behind
right.
brush or something. You get the full draw and that deer is now on alert. You can't let that bow down.
No,
you know, you're sitting there holding the bow. So let me tell you, that's happened to me twice, and it's paid off both times because I had a light bow. I'm able to sit there and hold forever. What feels like forever may have been 10
right.
seconds, but I'm able to hold that with a lower poundage bow and still get the same end result as what I would have with a 60-pound bow. So to me, it's kind of a no-brainer. You know, I know every state has their own rules and regulations that you have to have minimum maybe a 45-pound bow. So definitely check your regulations on what it is.
Right.
But I would just, to the new person that's coming in, you don't have to shoot a heavy poundage bow. And actually, it's better off starting with a lower poundage bow, getting the muscles built up, learning a good form. Because if you come in, you have a bad form right off the bat, you're 4 or 5 years, you're going to start have shoulder problems, if not addressed relatively quickly. And, and you can always upgrade, limbs if you're starting off with like a takedown or something. That's what I always recommend. Get a 3-piece takedown, Samick Sage, Black Hunter longbow, Black Hunter recurve. Any of those 3 are perfect. They're $100 and they perform really, really well for the money. So learn good form with like, say, a 30, 35-pound bow. Work your way up over the next 6 to 12 months. And you'll be you'll be able to compete, hunt, do whatever you want with something within that poundage.
Yeah, I know with kind of the difference between a compound is as you draw back, it gets harder, and it starts letting off. So you're holding,
Sure.
maybe 80% let off. So if say you're drawing a back 100-pound opponent, you're only holding 20.
20%. Yeah.
So you're holding way less. You can hold longer. The problem is
Good.
when you go let down, especially with these new really hard radical cams they have on the faster bows, once you
Sure.
hit that part where the can takes in, it almost takes it out of your hand. And,
Sure.
and I've seen so many people, they'll have a death grip on that bow and it actually turns the riser slightly. So now as they're letting down, it just pops the string off the cams
Bring that off. Yep.
and boom, just, it normally just slices that and, you broken
Your hunt's
can,
over.
broken bent axles, everything else. You got to remember, it's like, don't grip that bow, don't hang on to it. It'll
You bet.
let you down. And like with the recurves and longbows, most of them are rated at 28 inches of draw length. So like you have a 30, so you're 2 inches further, which means on most of your bows, you're going to draw about 6 more pounds. So that 44-pound bow, you're actually drawing 50 pounds,
Sure.
at your draw length.
Right, for a 28-pound bow. Now, I should say that my bow is 44 at, I think it's 29 or 29 and a half, one of the two.
Yeah.
But over the years, I've learned to kind of get more. So yeah, I'm probably shooting about a 46-pound longbow, but you're absolutely right. And
Yeah,
you're holding that 46 pounds too.
right. Thing is, you have to
Your
hold
muscles,
that
that's
way.
why, that's why it's so important to get locked in and learn that movement, because a lot of people will draw and kick that elbow out, not really getting into it. But once they learn to come upright, engage that back muscle to where it locks,
Right.
you can really hold. It's almost like a let off for a compound. Once you get that back muscle engaged, then it's literally, it's crushing, it's literally bringing your shoulder blades in. So your shoulder blades are pretty much what's holding that together, them back muscles. So it's almost like a let off, but it's nothing like 80%, let me tell you that.
No. And when you look at it too, you see a lot of people that have the front arm, the bow holding arm is at an angle in front of them instead of being out straight. So now not only are you pushing all the weight onto your arm trying to pull it back, but it's more onto your hand pulling it back. So now you're trying to like pushing with your weak muscles. And with me, when I teach, the basic way I teach is I'm going to push that hand so when the bow releases, it goes straight to your target. And one of the things to do with the my release, because I shoot compounds, is I take a string with a loop around my thumb. That's my draw length with a loop on the other end, and I'll practice firing that until that string will leave my hand straight to the target. If it doesn't do that, you're affecting the bow differently each time you shoot. And with over 20 years of martial arts and then 25 years teaching archery, I've kind of merged them together into more efficient motion, because just like in martial arts, you want to have all your power going straight through. And the same thing with your arrow. You want that string to be pushing from the tip or from the knock to the tip in a straight direction. If it doesn't, now you're not putting all the force into it. And same thing pointing up and down. If it's not pushing straight on it, it's going to push the knock end high or low. And that's why on the compounds we put a loop around the knock, not below it, because it puts most efficient force into that arrow and just transfer of energy. That's just basically what you're doing. And there's I got several videos in my course on different things, from holding the hands to proper way to draw, your draw technique, and I go through and say, okay, here's how I do my draw sequence. Do whatever you want, but this is how I do it. Same thing every time. I start off, do this, and that's the whole process you go through, and then you go through the whole step. Like you was mentioning earlier, it's like you need a proper draw form. The technique from putting your feet up, lining your feet up. How do you want them? I teach the toes pointing straight. If you put an arrow in front of your toes, it goes straight to your target. That's where you go, and you don't twist, and it's just all there. And you see a lot of them have, a lot of traditional ones will have the arm locked out. The problem is when you lock your arm out, it raises the shoulder up. And then when you lock your arm out, the shoulder's raised. Now what do you have? You have all the force into your shoulder tendons instead of through the joints. So you got to drop that down, slight bend in it. And whether I'm shooting recurves or anything else, I still have the same technique, slight bend in my arm. And when I first got my first bow, I thought I was 32-inch draw length. Because when I first got the first one, she's here, drop back. Well, how's it feel? Well, okay. I didn't know it because I'm pushing just as far as I can almost. And it was a compound, so it was there. And then I shot that for a while. And then when I went to my the first class I took in shooting with back tension release, it says, you're 29 and a half. You got to cut tomorrow, by Saturday, this is a Friday night, by Saturday night, you got to have your bow down to 29 and a half inch draw length, or you can't continue because it don't do any good. So I'm going, then did different strings and everything else, finally got it down 29 and a half, and now I shoot 29. Because that extra bend in my arm allows me during the winter time to have a big heavy coat on it. I don't need to squash that, an arm guard on there to keep it out of the way. It's slightly more bend. It's actually more comfortable. Have that little extra bend in there.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing: it all depends on pretty much what the bend of the bow arm comes to, and this is just what I believe. There is no scientific study. I mean, maybe there is. I don't know. But the amount of the shelf. So if you take something like an ASL where the shelf is cut really far out versus something like a target bow, so you can see the difference in those shelves in the way they're cut. Being
one's about
closer to
twice as
center.
deep as the other one. Yeah.
Right, being closer to center. And what you're doing whenever you're drawing that bow is, for most people, especially target archers, they're trying to get that bow. Let me turn to the side here for you guys. What they're doing is, as they're drawing, they're trying to get that arrow straight underneath their eye, correct? Because what they're doing is they're using still yet the tip of that arrow to aim at what they're wanting to hit. So they'll put the point of the arrow, it's called gap shooting, and they'll put the tip of the arrow so far under what they want to hit. So with a bow that is cut to center, you don't have to cant the bow per se so much. So the more you cant the bow, the more you have to bend the arm. So whenever you're kind of bending that arm coming over versus standing up straight, it actually, I mean, to me, I think the shelf has a lot to do with the bending of the arm and getting that arrow straight under your eye. So you'll see a lot of the target archers like John Dimmer, Dwayne Martin, these guys, they're actually locking their bow arm and they're pushing straight through it because their bows are actually cut past center. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So they're actually able to stand more erect, more upright versus something where they're having to cant that bow, twist the bow, and then kind of come into it or draw more, not hunched, but more just ever so slightly to get your eye straight in line with that arrow.
Yeah, they've learned to straighten the arm out, but not raise the shoulder up. That's what happens when you straighten the arm out and the shoulder raises up. You need to keep it down. You can still lock it out, and that takes a little bit to learn and have somebody watching.
Sure, I can't do that. I'm not very good at it, but
it's tough to do. As soon as you lock the arm out, the shoulder wants to pop up, and that's where you end up with the shoulder problems. And I actually had a physical therapist on. That's probably been about a year ago now. And we talked about shoulder problems and, the archers having shoulder problems and, what to do to help it out. And he had a whole bunch of exercises on that. And
sure.
Once you get a shoulder injury, that can kill your archery career.
Very, very true. Yes. I've just noticed that, especially because I shoot hill style bows more than anything. And of course, that's like the ones with the almost no shelf. And Howard Hill actually said that in one of his books that he likes to shoot with a bent arm. Once again, maybe it's because of the shelf, the way it's cut, don't know. Was just a thought. But I also noticed that even my target bows, very seldom do I ever lock because I can't. But I think it's because I've started so early on with these bows with the shelf cut so far out that I have to cant and then move to it. It's just bad. But bending that arm allows me to kind of bring it out a little bit more too, if that makes sense. I mean, it's kind of hard to show without drawing up and explaining.
Yeah. And on a podcast, it kind of, they can't see what we're doing for the podcast, but those get the chance to watch it in the group. They actually get to see what we're doing. And that's one of the advantages of being in the Archery Talk 101 Facebook group is you get to see these live and you can actually interact with them. You see me and look over once in a while just to see if nobody's making any comments, because you can make comments on the live event. And
questions and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, you can ask questions. Sometimes we'll have people make comments in there and sometimes not. And it's just kind of, something we provide to that group that, you don't get elsewhere,
Sure.
because you don't get to
Right.
ask
And
questions on
that's
the podcast.
right. And that's very important, I think, too, because I mean, like you said, there's no silly questions. The only questions that are silly are the ones that aren't asked, and there might be something that, we don't talk about or discuss that somebody truly is interested in. Maybe there's somebody that's shooting traditional archery that, has a very specific question, maybe two shells or fletching or something. And yeah, being able to ask that question live while people are still actually talking about it, that's really next level and really helps get more people involved as well.
It makes it a little easier than just posting a question and then waiting for an
Sure,
answer, and
sure.
stuff like that. So yeah, where do you plan on taking your archery after this? I know you said you was going to go, try and go back to the Olympics. You're going
For
back to the
sure.
Olympics again in 2024,
That's
and
right. Yeah.
and not try, because there is no try, either do or do not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That was that Yoda.
Yoda, right?
Yoda. Yeah.
Yeah,
Do or do not. There is no try. That's right.
right.
And you
But
have to have that mindset too. In all honesty, I think I'm going to, I help coach a little bit too with our local schools. We've actually just started traditional, or not traditional, but archery programs for our high schools, local high schools and stuff. So I used to donate a lot of my time to that, but I've kind of neglected that. Um, After 2024, I would like to get involved in that again. I would really like to keep the sport alive. You hear stories of like in the 80s and stuff where there was hundreds of people at every local shoot. Well, we're struggling to get, 60, 70 people now. And that's a
right,
good shoot. There's some shoots we don't have but 12 people. So, the youth really is a lot of our future, so if you have somebody that's interested in it but has no resource or no way to to be able to have an outlet for that, and it's kind of like, it was a good idea, but maybe I shouldn't, it's so I would really like to get more involved with bringing more youth into archery, and I think that's probably my goal over the long run in the next 4 or 5 years, I think.
yeah, that's a good goal. It's always nice to see when you're coaching. That's one thing I like about coaching, is when that person just all of a sudden it clicks what they're doing, and
Oh
then
yeah.
they go from big old wide groups to smaller,
Yeah.
smaller, smaller. Next thing you know, it's like, okay, you can't shoot single spots no more because you're wrecking too many arrows.
It gets you more excited than they do. I mean, at least it does for
Yeah,
me. Whenever I'm shooting good, I'm like, all right. But if I'm coaching somebody and just like that, you see the groups coming in, you start seeing the engagement and the shop process coming. It's like, it gets me all giddy. I'm like, yeah, man, that's what I'm talking about. I go over and pat them, and it's really a good feeling, man. And I know if I'm feeling good, they're feeling even better.
right, right. It's kind of catching. And I know
Yeah.
here in the summer, I helped out with Nebraska Game Parks. They had a Women in the Outdoors, and I went and helped out at the archery event, the archery part of it. They did archery, they did shotgun, and they did rifles. And we had uh, ladies there from, I think it was 14 or 17 to 72, and
That's
all
awesome.
different ranges, mostly starting out. There was
That's
one
cool.
lady there that had her own bow that she started last year at this event, and now she's doing it. So, when come she was up shooting, so I went and help her, give her some more pointers, on top of where she was at. And it's just fun to teach, new archers, this new skill. And uh, it's just amazing how much, fun it can be teaching them. And that's why,
Sure.
once I become an instructor in 95, I've been teaching. I've taught hundreds of people how to shoot. And I remember one time when I was at the one place, this lady comes in, her husband is shooting, she wanted a bow, so she got a bow, and I taught her how to shoot. He's trying to tell her something different. She's ignoring him, paying attention to me. And then she come back a while later and she's, yeah, I'm picking out which part of the X-ring to put my arrow in. And he tries to tell her something, and he says, no, I just listen to Roy. Roy sit on my shoulder, and I just listen to what he's telling. And so I tell her that she's listening to me, she puts you on her shoulder and ignores him, and she outshoots him.
Yeah. See,
Outshoots
that's
him every
kind of,
time.
yeah. And that's the thing, you gotta pay attention where you get your information from. You gotta find somebody that's proven themselves. That's, I'll go back to it every single time. That's smart on her part.
Yeah. Well, and then there too, sometimes you're teaching a kid and dad's sitting there trying to contradict everything you say, because he thinks he knows what's going on. And at some point it's like, you know what? You take over because you're just going to undo everything I do. He's going to
Yeah,
outshoot you, but that's just the way it goes. And you can't
yeah,
help anything. You do what you can. And then, when you're teaching somebody, uh, something I can go up to somebody and I can talk to them for just a few minutes, and I know whether or not I'm even going to offer them any advice.
sure.
Because you can tell they're just closed-minded.
That's one of the things that, and that's another advice that I always give people is, in order to succeed in this sport, you have to be humble. You have to be able to approach everything with an open mind. Everybody knows something you don't. You just got to listen and find out what it is. That is one of the most famous sayings, and it came from a traditional archer. Bob, I forgot his last name, but he's just an amazing archer. But that's very true. You have to keep an open mind, keep yourself grounded, and just approach everything that you may not know everything. That there may be a better way to do it. There's so many times that I've tried shooting a different style because I'm like, you'll see somebody, and maybe even somebody that's proven themselves, say, well, that's not how you do it. You're supposed to do it this way. And you're like, okay, well, I'll at least try it. Sometimes
Right.
it doesn't work. Sometimes it does. I'm willing to put myself out there to at least be grounded enough and open enough, humble enough to give something else a try. Because ultimately, if it makes me that much better of an archer, I'm willing to do it. But once again, I'm not taking information from the guy flipping off a camera on Facebook.
Right.
So whatever he
Take
says is automatically out the window.
Take somebody that's been teaching archery for a while, and there are those that can shoot good but can't teach. You're running that
Yeah,
in
I know.
school. So
Yeah.
very smart, knows the subject in and out, but cannot teach it and you just got to find a person that may not be that top-notch archer,
Sure.
but they can teach you how to be there. And that's the goal as a coach, is to teach you how to shoot better than I can shoot.
Right. And that's
I
another thing
want you to outshoot me.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another thing for coaches too. Coaching is a game of its own. Learning to coach and how you're going to do it and how you approach each individual. You grow as coaches too. So this sport, man, it's just got so much to offer, not just shooting, but growing as an individual with, just your teaching methods and how you get across. What
Right.
worked for one person was the able to really take in and comprehend what you were saying. Can you address it a different way? So, it's there's so much into growing, and you're absolutely right. I know a few people that are amazing shooters, amazing. And I went to them for coaching and they're like, I don't know, I just shoot. Like, so yeah,
Move on.
it's definitely true. And I might have been that guy at one point too myself. So I can't say too much.
Well, I kind of go through that, and I know, in archery coaching you kind of go through all that. Each person's a little bit different. You have to fit the bow
Sure.
to them, not them to the bow.
Right.
When you're setting up, being a bow tech, we set up bows to fit the person, and this bow may or may not work for you. I had one bow
Sure.
that I really wanted to shoot, but I could not shoot it worth beans. I just couldn't fit it to me, and it's like,
Sure.
it's not the bow for me.
Right.
And and you just got to learn how each person's a little bit different. That's what I learned, in many years of teaching martial arts. Uh, I did Hapkido, which is a lot of joint locks, arm bars, throws, stuff like
Sure.
that. And each person's body is going to work different. So I could teach two people the exact same technique. One gets it, one don't. So I have to modify what I'm telling them to do, and now then they get it.
Sure.
And you learn that over the years, how to see, okay, they're not getting this. I can't just repeat it. Like they say, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results, right? So if you teach the same way every time to everybody and you're not getting it results, you got to change. And
Sure.
and that's being a coach, that's the coach's job, is to know how to adapt to the student.
Sure.
So that you can teach them what's going on.
Absolutely. That's true.
And that's why, for my coaching program, and to get in the coaching program, I have a form that you fill out for a free 50-minute consultation call. And I ask you several different questions in there, besides your name and contact information, of course, so I know how to get a hold of you. Before I'm going to send you a link to my calendar to book a 15-minute call. I want to know a little bit about it. What are you struggling with? What are you looking to get out of it? And all these kind of questions in there, several questions. And then you fill that out, and then we book a call and get on and see, hey, is coaching for you or not for you? And by the way, I'll leave a link in the description, how to get to that form if he's interested in, seeing if coaching might be for him. And, I talked to one lady that her coach was Olympic archer. And he's like, I can't help you. She's shooting
Yeah.
recurves or longbows, one of the two. I don't remember which one it was. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to really coach you much. I'll be glad to look at your form a couple of times, but I'm going to ask you, what is he teaching you to do? And just kind of look at it and see, are you doing what he's teaching you? That's how I'll coach somebody that has another coach, is I'm not going to change them to my way of doing it, because I do one way. I don't use my arrow at all when I'm shooting traditional equipment.
Sure.
I just look at the target. I don't look at the arrow. I don't gap shoot. I don't do the string walking. First I heard of the string walk, is like, okay, I didn't understand it because I'd never used it, because I normally mostly focus on compounds. And then there's a couple of guys on the internet. One's an Olympic archer that has his own YouTube channel, and he talks about all the different stuff on there. And I like watching stuff because I learn stuff, and it's like, okay, that's how you do it. That's what he's doing. And okay, any of this I can take into compound archery to learn a little bit better on. And a lot of them will teach, you come up there and then it wraps around and you touch your shoulder with your thumb. It's like, my hand won't go there. I can't even force it there. So I'm not going to be able to do one of those things just because I can't get my arm in that position. So I couldn't do that, but I can do the same technique. It's just my hand's not going to go, back in my head, like some of them go clear around their head and they release, but I can see things like when they open a hand, the hand goes away from the face. Okay, you're not going to have a good release. Guaranteed you're not. Or
Right.
they'll fling their fingers open, and that's how they used to teach it, was just open your fingers.
Yeah.
And that's not the way to do it. We found better ways of doing it. And there are shooters out there, they're very, very good shots.
Right.
And I've seen some, in a traditional stuff. There's one lady that I watch once in a while, very good shot. She'll shoot at like little rings, or she'll put up a little bottle down there and put up a card and shoot through a card and all kinds of stuff like that. And then the latest compound, but I see, okay, she's got her finger up over it and then slamming on the trigger. I'd like to, okay, let's try this and see, how, if it helps you. And like everything, when I first started, I was one of those, I drew back and then I just pulled the trigger when I had to go. And then just talking about this back tension and then learning it was just it was crazy, how, okay, this don't feel right, especially when I went to shorter draw length. It's like, this don't feel right. And once I got used to it, I actually went shorter. And one of the things they had us doing was shooting with our eyes closed. Now, granted, we could reach forward and grab the arrow and pull it out of the backstop. So it's not like we had to worry about anybody going in front of us, because they're going to hit our arrow before we got get in front of us. But we'd shoot, using the back tension release, and with our eyes closed, it's like, oh, now I know what it feels like. Open your eyes, all goes away. And what I used to do, not having, the ability, or less times having them where I could shoot there, I says, okay, I want you to put your finger way above the trigger, you draw back. You're not going to pull the trigger. I want you to aim. And I put my finger on the trigger, and they're aiming. I'd actually pull the trigger for them. And it's just, oh, it just surprised. And I was like, that's what it's supposed to feel like every time. And you know what? Almost every time they hit the spot they're aiming at. Because all they had to do was aim.
Yeah.
And that's what it should feel like. And if you don't feel that, that's a wrong technique. Now, you can't do that with fingers, because I can't open your fingers up for you. So it's a little bit harder.
So and one of the things that I've kind of learned is that you have to be, especially with traditional archery, if you are a gap shooter, string walker, whatever, if you're using an aiming technique, the main form of target panic is where you start to do drive-bys as you're trying to get your point to come down to where it needs to be. And right before you get there, your brain knows it's coming. And it's like you just drop it and you let go and then you start flinging. In traditional archery, if you are an aimer, you have to find a way to separate the shot from the aim. So what a lot of people will do is it's no different than saying like shooting a rifle or even a compound where you know your finger is curled back and just getting it there, like if you're using the trigger or whatever, just setting that curled finger. Once you know that that bow is not going off or that rifle is not going off, you're free to put it wherever you want. Aiming is
Right.
no longer an issue, so the same thing applies with traditional archery, because you're actually holding it on, but you have to come up with, like, say, a mental or physical trigger, and what a lot of people will do is as they're drawing up and they're about to shoot, what they may do is slightly lift a finger. So, or just finding a mechanical, just ever even so minute, like, okay, I'm drawing, my bow is safe, I know safety's on, you can do everything you want. And then, okay, now is everything feeling good? Does everything feel good to where I can continue? Okay, let's take the safety off, or just something, even if it's mental, take the safety off. Now we're okay to shoot. You give the aim away and you start to focus on your target and work through that expansion and, creating that back tension. So the aim is already done. You just have to find a way to expand, because it's just like a lot of people teach. If I were to tell you to put your finger on the middle of the screen, or put it on the screen, your brain
Yeah.
knows where that aim is. Exactly. So
Yeah.
just being able to separate the shot from the aim is going to cure so much target panic. 9 times out of 10, people say, well, that's what I'm doing. I'm driving by, or I get locked up off a target. It's because your brain knows it's coming. It knows that violent explosion's coming. So finding something physically or even mentally, even just a slight lift of one of your toes, or something like tapping your
Right.
toe or something, if you're not comfortable with moving your grip, separate the shot from the aim and watch your scores, your grouping, confidence go through the roof.
Yeah,
That's
I was talking
free.
to an Olympic archer, and those that have the clicker on them, they
Yeah,
can,
same thing.
even though there might be other people on the line with clickers going off, that they're so in tune to their bow, they can feel the clicker before it makes a noise. They can feel it going off, and they know once they feel that, now it's the time to start relaxing the fingers and keep pulling through, and
Right.
it gives you a consistency. They can feel that in there. It's amazing when he's talking about that, because I haven't shot a bow with a clicker on it, so
Yeah.
I don't know what it feels like because I haven't shot one. And you're talking about separating the shot from the release. In a compound, when you're using either a handheld or what they call a thumb release, which is not really a thumb release, because you still don't want to use your thumb because it has less dexterity, less control than you do with the index finger.
Yeah. Right.
And then, yeah, so you don't use your thumb to pull the trigger. I don't even, a lot of them have a knob on them, and I don't have the knob on. I just put the trigger right in the meaty part between my thumb and index finger, and I just pull through.
Right.
There's no moving the thumb at all. If I do want to force it to fire, I just make a fist. I just tighten my fist up and it'll fire. But as you just pull through, and same thing with the trigger, with the wrist strap. I put my finger behind the trigger as I'm drawing, because last thing I'm going to do is pull back and I struggle, and you pull that trigger.
Yeah,
Friend of
I've
mine
done that plenty of times.
smacked himself in the mouth because he pulled the trigger, and I says, "You pulled the trigger, didn't?" "No, I didn't." "Well, your finger was in front of the trigger. You made a fist and pulled the trigger."
You
When
pulled
he's
trigger.
going from fingers to release. So you put your finger behind, and once you get back there, and then you put your finger in there, and then I don't teach, like on a firearm, you normally use the first pad between the
Right.
tip and the first joint, to put on the trigger. I teach go back to the second joint back, and that's you put your that's where the trigger goes, not on the tip. So it takes this motion out. So now all you do is just relax your hand around the trigger, and now as you pull through, it will fire it. You don't have to move the finger at all. Just the
That's
process of pulling through will make it fire.
yeah.
And there you're not pulling. And with a compound bow, the only reason you have target panic is because you're trying to pull the trigger. Because what happens in a target panic is like you're talking about, you see the pin go across the target. Your mind says, pull the trigger. And so your finger starts, and now then your pin moves off. Your mind says, oh, stop, abort, not there.
Yep.
Where if you take that out of it, you're not telling your mind to shoot. Once you aim, you start the motion, and now you just always do is aim until it finally goes off, and let the pin float. Don't focus on the pin, because if you focus on the pin, wherever the pin is, where it's going to go. Focus on the target, let the pin float over. Focus on where you want it to go, and that pin's going to float around it. And it's amazing when you do that. It's how many times you hit it where you want it to go, because you're focusing on where you want it to go, picturing the arrow in the target where you want, focusing on that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So yeah, there's a lot of mental aspects in here, and I had a whole podcast on the mental aspects of archery, and one of my interviews, the mental attitude that she had towards archery was amazing, and how well she incorporated the mindset into there. And a lot of things, it's all about mindset, what you're thinking about, what you're going to get. I like to use the thing, don't think about the American flag. Don't think about the American flag. Don't think about the American flag. What do you think about?
American flag.
Right.
The American flag. Yeah.
Or for my Canadian residents, don't think about the Canadian flag, it just whatever you're thinking about, that's what you're going to get. And that's the whole mindset that, as archers, we need to get into. It's like, we need to focus on visualizing that arrow going where it wants to go. And especially, I shoot instinctive shooting. I don't use the string lock, and I use the tip. I don't even see the tip. All I'm doing is looking at my target, and, that's how I shoot. And when I pick up my recurve, I don't look for sights. I instinctively, when I pick up my compound, I have never been able to shoot a compound instinctively.
Sure.
I just, my mindset won't let me go there, and I choose not to force it. It's a different weapon. Like when I pick up a handgun and shoot it, my mindset's different. Pick up a rifle, it's different. Pick up a shotgun. Everything you pick up, it's a different weapon. And your mind has to change the way it shoots. And
the way, and exactly what you said earlier is that you were using your words in your mind, like you said, don't think of the American flag. What's your brain going to do? Think of the American flag. So if you were to reverse that, instead of saying what not to do, and you start saying, okay, now I've got this, let's keep pulling. If you just say keep pulling, or something that is actually like a physical movement, or something like aim, and then you get your aim, and then you're like, okay, keep pulling. Your brain is constantly thinking about the keep pulling. It's not worried about the aim no more, because we've established that we're done with that. So the words really matter. If you were to, just like you said, if you were to say, like, I don't know, laundry detergent as you're shooting, like, that has nothing to do with archery. You know what I mean? Your brain has no idea what to do with that. So once you train your words to your brain, it will know nothing but that as you're going through that movement. Your brain, it's a wonderful thing. But, just allowing words, using the right words during a shot process is key to really taking the next level too, to the mental part of it.
Just you're visualizing, and you're scripting your own video all across the process, all the way through. Here's your aiming, here's your release, and you're scripted the arrow to hit dead center of the X-ray.
Sure.
Right, dead center. That's what you're picturing. Everything through it. Here's your shot process. Okay, I got back, with traditional, I do the corner of my mouth. Okay, I'm at the corner of my mouth. I'm there. Okay, hand is all in position. Okay, now time to start relaxing the fingers and pulling across my face, and then you just across to wherever it's going to go, and just do that every time. And that's something you can visualize, even though you don't have to pull a bow back.
Sure.
You don't have to have a bow. Okay, go through your whole process. Go out there and go through that motion, and until you've done it. Same thing we used to, teach in martial arts. Until you've done something 1,000 times, it's not muscle memory.
Oh no. So that was like one of my big training regiments, was without even a bow. Like, after reading a book, I really, I had the ability to do it, but I lacked the mindset, the confidence. I had a very
Right.
bad self-image because I didn't feel that I belonged. I didn't think that I belonged with those guys making Team USA. I hadn't proved myself. So one of my training regimens after reading this book was just in visualizing myself. So as I'm driving to work, what I'm doing is I'm imagining I have probably a 20-minute drive. 1 minute that goes by, I've literally visualized myself walking up to a stake, ranging my target. And this is all just in my head. Okay, now what's the next step? Working from my feet coming up, getting to my anchor, pulling through. I'm visualizing where the target is, where my gap needs to be. Like it's so in detail in my brain that whenever I see that in real life, I've already shot that 1,000 times. I know
Right.
what to do now. So I've changed that with, how I train to smarter training and visualizing yourself doing it, building your self-confidence, knowing you can do that anytime you want. Between that and then leaving sticky notes throughout the house telling myself, you're the best shooter I know, make the team, just really telling myself that I can do this. I know I can do this because I've done it and there's nothing to it. Like trying to build that mindset really, I think, is what allowed me to make Team USA this past time. 100%. I truly believe that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what you got to do. And
Yeah.
like someone talk about, the last shot, don't worry about the last shot. You can't pull it back. And if
Yeah.
you think about how bad the last shot was, you're just going to put that in the next shot's going to be just as bad, if not worse.
You bet. You praise only the good shots and praise the good shot process. Even if the shot isn't that great, if it doesn't hit if everything felt good in that process, mistakes happen. We're human, right? But if you
Right.
know for a fact that you had your aim, you know for a fact that everything felt good, praise that shot. If you make a 5 or something bad shot, flush it, man. Flush it. Don't even give it the time of day because you don't want to
No.
incorporate anything about that. What did I do wrong? I don't know. Let's think about it. No, screw that. Don't think about it, and visualize the next target. Take it to, take it for what it's worth.
Yeah. And that's kind of, I use that string technique I told you about earlier, is
Sure.
I'd have it with me, when I was doing outdoor 3Ds, I'd have it with me. And then, something's not feeling right. Something's off. I don't know what it is. I'd grab that string out, and while everybody else is shooting, I'd have my bow hanging up and I'd start shooting. I was like, oh, this isn't leaving my finger. It's getting stuck on my thumb. It shouldn't be stuck on my thumb. It's like go
Right.
through it. It's like, oh, okay, that's where I'm at. So that visualization, I don't know, shooting my bow, because you can't, because only one person on a line at a time when you're shooting 3D targets. You don't normally
Right.
have more than one person shooting the same target.
Right.
So I'd go through that. It's like, all right, now I got my next shot. You're not where it's supposed to be.
There you go.
And and that's something it's worthwhile doing. And I know they have devices now that you can use this kind of simulate a bow. And I know in compounds they have a thing you can put in there that fastens to it, that is basically a big shock, so you can shoot your bow inside, and you don't have to shoot regular arrows. And I've
Sure.
got a couple of those. One I think got banned, but I haven't stuck them on there, just because I just put a bale in the basement and shoot from 5 feet away and work on my form that way.
You bet. Yeah. That's 90% of the battle too for shooting,
Yeah,
having a good
yeah,
form. Yeah.
yeah. Just get
Yeah.
there and work on that form. And
Yeah. And that's another thing too, as far as like target archery is drills. It's not just going out and shooting and trying to hit a 20-yard target or trying to do this. It's there. Like if you look at the top archers in the world, they're not just going out and having fun in a 3D course. No, they're training. They're doing drills. They're doing blind bells. They're doing like the same thing with your string. They're in visualizing so much more than just shooting. And it's really cool. The deeper I get into this and the more that I'm actually learning, the less I'm shooting. And it makes zero sense,
yeah,
but it's because
yeah,
I'm learning more up here. And like I said earlier, 15 minutes of practicing the right way versus 2 hours of shooting, without a purpose. I get way more accomplished in that 15 minutes.
Right. And it don't take you all day and you're getting a lot done.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
it's just like I covered this in one of the other podcasts, but you're shooting a 5-spot, let's say, and you seem like, okay, the last one you're shooting is always off. And you shoot them, top left, top right, middle, bottom left, bottom right. And, just grabbing arrows going out. It's like, okay, now they're kind of randomly going all over. You don't know what's going on. So, I says, number your arrows 1 through 5 or 1 through 12 if you've got 12 arrows, and shoot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, shoot it in that order and see what they do. Now then shoot those in reverse order. So now all of a sudden my 5th arrow is always the bad arrow, no matter which way I shoot it. So now there's something going on by the time you get to the 5th arrow, you're doing something different.
Right.
Maybe you're shooting too fast and you're getting tired by the time you get to that 5th arrow. And
Sure.
so it could be, okay, number 5 arrow is always off, no matter which way you shoot them. So switch up your order. Instead of shooting arrows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, shoot 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in the same order. And now it's like, okay, number 5 arrow is always shooting off. Something wrong with this arrow. Pull it out, grab number 6, substitute it in, and shoot them. And there's something wrong with that arrow. And I've had that before where an arrow just won't fly.
Yeah.
Especially when you put on broadheads, because you got the wings up front and wings in the back, and they're just for some reason that arrow would not fly with a broadhead. Well, it flies perfectly with a field tip. Something about it, the way it's fletched or something.
That's why I say go back to calling arrows. Checking them arrows.
Right.
It could have been something so simple. Yeah, and I trust me, I agree with that perfectly, because I was shooting the USA Archery indoors, the 53rd indoor this past time. And I did end up in second, didn't shoot as well as I'd hoped, but still did fairly good, got a medal out of it. But there was like 2 or 3 times I was shooting arrows and I did exactly that. I was labeling them and I'm like, okay, that's 2 ends where this arrow just did not perform. And I started chunking out. I'm like, it's not me, it's the arrow, because I'm trying to build my confidence back up, saying it was not me, it was that arrow, which, it may have been or may not have been, but to me, I was staying on track because I knew I could do that. I knew my shots were good, and it's easier to blame the equipment.
Well, I've done it too when I shoot aluminum arrows. You'll get one bent or something, and you don't realize you keep shooting it. Now then, instead of getting in the 10 ring, now I'm getting 8s and 5s with it. So then you just take and spin it. It's like, oh, this is bent. So you take it out of your quiver and don't shoot it. Now carbons, they're pretty much straight or broke. You don't have the bend like you do with aluminum, unless you get on like the ACCs, that's aluminum and carbon both. Well, the aluminum bends, it's going to bend the carbon.
Sure.
So that's the disadvantage of those, but they're normally pretty light and small. But
sure, with the full metal jackets.
I still give me carbon or give me aluminum. I know when the very first carbons come out, they were all the carbon fibers run from tip to knock, straight fibers all the way through. And there's no way I would shoot them. I'd never hunt with them, because when they break, they have little bitty carbon fiber fragments. And they just when you break them, man, they just go all over. You can get them in your hand and everything else. So I refused to use them until they started coming out with, I was a PSC dealer back, 22 years ago now, something like that. And they come out with one, and PSC had to get a special company to make them to their specs, because just the normal carbon fiber manufacturers didn't make them by their specs. So they come out with ones, and those you could break those and they wouldn't shatter or nothing like that. So I started using those, and being a PSC dealer, I had access to arrows to try out. And then they come out with what they call their X-weave, which is even better. Instead of being just some going north, south, going east and west. Well, the X-weaves, they went diagonally, and they're even a little bit stronger carbon fibers then. And they come out with some really good ones there, and that's where they come with their Comp Pros, which is 1000s, and then the other ones that went down. I think the Dominators are 300 or something in between. I forget what it's called. And then they come out one time with one called a Hunter Shaft, which is a 7000 straightness. So You know, I got some of those and I tried them, and I could keep my broadheads in the 5 ring on the 5 spot. I could keep them in the 5 ring, but I couldn't keep them in the X-ring. That's the difference between a 7 and a 1, because the one I keep in the X-ring, you know, I could tune them in to hit the X-ring every time.
Right.
And the problem I run into is they were actually heavier spines, they were heavier weight. So when I
Yep.
went to replace them with the other ones, I had put weight tubes in them because they're too light. I didn't
Uh,
want to redo all my sights.
you
So I had to
betcha.
weigh them down. So they
Yeah.
matched.
Yeah,
But
that's the same. And let me tell you, that's the same thing with traditional archery. I'll tune a bow and I'll get good wooden arrows. Like my competition style arrows, I have all of my arrows that I brought to Italy within 1 pound spine. They're like a 50, I think well, they were 2 pound spine of what I brought, but everything in my quiver was within one spine. In case those broke, then I reverted to some more. But I have them within 6 grains finished weight. That's very precise for wood. That's very
right,
hard to do, and I manipulate that with like different coatings of my finish or dipping versus wipe on, slight sanding after you dip. But I got them all within like 6 grains finished weight, 4 6. And you tune those to your bow. Well, then after you start running out of those, you have to make a whole new set. Well, now your bow is
right,
tuned to that specific grain. I mean, sure, you can get away with like maybe a 40 to 60 grain, give or take, and be still within the ballpark, and then just adjust your knock height or your brace height and make it work.
right.
But yeah, no, it's that was one thing I always hated was working with weights in bows. It really will mess up your tune. Same, so
Yeah,
just like compounds, traditional's the
yeah.
same way.
And it's amazing when you have um, all the different options you have, and you know, with the compounds you have a lot of things to adjust. You know, you don't have quite as much adjust on traditional equipment, because you don't
Yeah.
have the wheels to adjust, the poundage to adjust,
Sure.
and you know,
Yeah. We have two
you
things.
could you could, yeah. You know, you can change the brace height, and that's pretty much
Brace
about
height and
it.
knock. That's what you can do.
Yeah, yeah, that's the two things you can change. Where, you know, we can change the knock point, we can change the center shot where the rest sits, we can tweak the upper and lower limb either up or down. Um,
Sure.
you know, so you know, if you see your bows in one thing, you can kind of, you know, get it where it goes a little bit differently, because the bottom limb is a little heavier, a little lighter. You know, what's kicking, you know, maybe you want the top one to be a little heavier because it pulls it forward to be consistent. And you know, then you got your stabilizer to put on there. You know, what does that do? You know, I had one bow that I was looking at,
Yeah.
and it didn't really need much for balance, but I had a little bitty short, like 3 or 4 inch long stabilizer. And I noticed when I was shooting it, doing a little video on um, you know, about the weight, I noticed the bottom limb would kick up because I needed more weight to keep it from kicking up. And,
Yeah.
you know, there's all kinds of things you can do. And nice thing I was like, oh, okay, this has a problem here. I need to fix it.
Yeah.
And so I tore that one down, and it needed new strings anyway. So I started creating videos on how to build the strings and the cables and put them on. And I was going through the whole process, and I got to do work on my jig that I hold my bow with. I'm missing a couple of parts that got lost, you know, over the years. So I need to make a couple new
Thanks.
parts in it to get it fixed. But you know, it's one of those where you can adjust your third axis. You have a third axis adjustment on your sights on a compound.
Right.
You know,
Right.
your elevation for up and down, left and right. But then as you tilt your bow down, what does your level do on your sight? You know,
Right.
so
It's
now
good.
then as you're pointing down, is it level or is it canted to one side? And sometimes you have to shim them. And you know, I've had to shim the bracket that fastens onto it, because you didn't have the adjustment on the sight, so you had to put a little spacer in there to turn the bow so that it's sat level through the whole process. And you know, there's a
Wow.
lot for doing a tune on there, because if you're shooting downhill, you're pointing down. You're shooting up, you're pointing up. So if you're expecting the level, so only time I pull back, I draw back, look at the level. I don't even look at it too much anymore now, because I've drawn back so many times and it's there. I don't even look at it anymore. But for those that are looking at it, you look at your level. Okay, if you're good, then you finish up. If you're not, you got to let down, because you can't tweak your hand in the bow once you're full draw. You got to
Sure.
go down, reposition hand, and draw back. And that's why that hand position is so important. And no matter what bow you're using, whether it's your
Sure.
traditional long bows, recurves, compounds, it all
Absolutely.
makes a difference. Crossbows, that's a different story because there's not really much to do with them. The big
Mhm.
thing, remember, on a crossbow is if you get your finger above the rail, it will take it off.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
It will take it off if you put your finger up there. So don't put nothing up there.
Especially the newer ones, yeah.
Oh yeah, have you seen some of those that the limbs are almost touching and they go back? They're only slight movement.
That's
The
scary,
whole
man.
thing is only maybe 6 or 8 inches wide.
Yeah. Mhm.
They're
And they're
really,
putting
really
out some
narrow.
serious speeds.
Oh yeah, yeah. And the strings draw back a little differently, and it's just weird how they, how it
Scared.
works.
I'm
And
scared of them, man. I'm scared of them.
yeah, instead of being the limbs facing forward towards you, the wheels, they're facing forward. As you draw that
Uh-huh.
string back and it pulls them in so small. And I'm not even sure how you'd press one of those nowadays.
I don't
Some of the
know.
new
I
bows,
don't
because I
know.
have an old bow press, so I can press the old bows, and I have a portable bow press with a thing to do for split limbs. But
Yeah.
one of
You
my
bring it to
neighbors over
somebody is
here,
what you do. You
he
bring it to somebody else.
it was the limbs were beyond parallel. So they, instead of being straight, they curved back in. And so I went to stick my jig on there to press them. It's like, nah, this ain't gonna stay on there because it's just barely on there. And
Right.
I couldn't use my portable bow press on it. And it's like, this is you need a new string, and this is you're gonna have to press it, just bring me the string. Yeah,
And you just
you,
throw it
you
away
know,
and buy a whole new crossbow.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that was on a compound.
Oh, even better.
Yeah,
Well, I don't have that problem anymore.
no, no. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, all the different equipment and where everybody takes their archery journey, and some
Sure.
like you make it over the Olympics and gonna make it back again, and others just do it for fun,
You
and
bet.
they're satisfied with just flinging a few arrows once in a while, and
That's
others
perfectly fine. Yeah.
want to hunt with them and they hunt, and it's just there's just so much possibility,
Oh yeah.
and and it's a sport. And like all sports, you need a coach of some kind.
Yeah. I
You
agree
know
with that.
what you went through, looking at videos and all this other stuff, and log and ask questions. The next level would actually have somebody that would look at them and say, here's what I see you're doing different. And
Yep.
and that's why I took mine, because there's a lot of good archers out there, that have some really good videos on compounds and recurves, how to do this stuff. They see some videos of
Sure.
them teaching somebody, but they're not teaching you. And that's where I took
Right.
my coaching, online coaching, where we actually has personal stuff. We're going to communicate on there. We're going to look at stuff ahead of time, review them, come back in here, and then we're going to actually watch it and critique the videos, and then watch it going. We're going to get live. It's the only thing better would be actually me standing next to you, you
Yeah.
know, helping you out. But short of that, the way things are now, it's nice to, do it in your own home. You have target up,
Right.
you could be shooting in your basement and I could be watching what you're doing and giving you pointers, and
Yeah.
that's what's nice about the way we have now, is we can do this online coaching and help things out. And
Technology is
it's
awesome.
really, it opened up a lot of coaching to people that couldn't normally get it or couldn't afford it.
Right.
You could book like just an hour of my time, and you can get a lot of it, because I'm gonna have you watch some videos ahead of time, take some videos, I'm gonna critique it before we get on and spend our hour together. So I've already given you pointers. Now then we can just kind of fine tune them once we're in. It makes your time, my time, much more valuable together, because we can
Right.
cover so much more specifics to problems you're working on. Okay, I'm having trouble with this. This is what I'm having trouble with. And when I draw back, it never comes up level. Okay, so we'll try this. Right, okay. And then we can spend an hour working on one problem. And that's what's so nice. And um, once again, remember, I'll leave a link in the description if you want to get into a consultation call. So you can see, coaching might be for you, might not. We just kind of help out and see where we go from there.
Right.
So we've been on here for a little while here. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. It's really been a pleasure talking with you. You have
Yeah.
any closing thoughts?
Man, not really. I truly enjoy the sport. I have a passion for it. Um, if you ever just wanted to do a traditional only, specific to traditional competition or something, I'd be more than happy to do something like that. Anybody can reach out to me too if they have any questions. I'm more than happy to help. And that's kind of the thing, to pay it forward. So many people help me out getting started. I don't mind helping. Obviously I'm not a coach. I would say, hit this guy up, but if you have small questions, tuning and stuff like that, I don't mind those types of questions. Once again, I think that's kind of what makes the sport good, is having having those people that are willing to help, because there were so many people willing to help me, and I wouldn't be where I'm at without those people. So, that's kind of my way to help pay it forward. And once again, I truly love a sport. I love everybody in it. It's been one of the best journeys I've ever been on in my life, and look forward to growing old with it, just like, anything else in life.
Yeah. So if everyone want to get a hold of you, how would be the best way to get a hold of you?
I do have Facebook. It's under Joshua Miller. 90% of the time it's going to be with me and my family, or just me shooting a bow. So if it's me, my two kids, and my wife, or me shooting a bow, you got the right profile picture. The right person. So, I have that. I do have a YouTube channel. It's not very big. I do have more bow reviews, stuff like that, maybe one or two small hunts, but I plan on making that a little bit bigger over the next few years. Because now I'm kind of slowing down on the competitive side. I have one main goal, that's to make Team USA again, maybe a couple other small ones, but so I plan on growing that. That's Stickman Archery, STYK space man and space archery. So you can either reach out to me on either two of those platforms, and I'll do my best to get a hold back in touch with you.
Sounds good. Thank you for being on the show. Really
Yeah,
enjoyed
thanks for
talking with
having me.
you.
Yeah, same
And,
here.
and what I'll do on the podcast, I'll leave a description in the description of the link to your YouTube channel and your Facebook
Okay.
page. And then they can
Sure.
get a hold, makes it a little easier if you're listening on the podcast. You just look at the description and there'll be links in there. That way it makes it a little easier for them. But other than that, get a hold of you. If they have any questions on that, you can always get a hold of me.
Yeah,
Multiple
coaching needs to
ways.
go to you. Coaching needs to go to you. Small questions
Right.
here.
Well, and I have, the Archery Talk 101 Facebook group, and you'll see it be a red picture. The guy being picture in the background and shooting arrows in there. And also I have a page. My page is focused around archery. So if you see me in archery, you'll see my face on there and shooting a bow, and you have the right page there. And I'll leave some links in there to join the group. If you want to join the archery group, that's a good place. And one of the things that we do is part of the service for the group is, if you want to take a video of yourself shooting and upload it to the group, then we'll take and review it. It's not quite as good as being in a coaching program, because there's going to be a delay by the time you upload it and we see what's going on, some comments on them, and who knows who's going to comment on there. It's a safe place to be, because we don't have any links in the group. The only links that I'll allow is to archery events, so as long as they're not to their site trying to sell stuff, here's information on this shoot. I do allow those posts in there, because that's providing, someplace for us to go shoot. So if anybody knows of a shoot coming up, post a link to the page to sign up for the shoot, or information about the shoot. And we're just, we're all here to help each other out. And if there's a shoot next to you that you want to go to, hey, go. It's always nice to go different places and
You bet.
shoot different things. And
Meet new people. You bet.
yeah. All right. Well, thanks for listening. My name is Roy Canterbury. I've been your host today on Archery Talk 101.